Hello friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works workshop. I've got a little project here that I originally was not going to film. However, it got a little more interesting and I thought, well, you know, this would make a good video. And it's something I haven't done for sure on video before. In fact, I don't really remember doing the whole part of this project ever. I've worked around it, if you will, meaning that I've touched on it, I've repaired little bits and pieces, but I haven't done the whole project. But first, before I give away what the project is, take a look at this little thing I've made here and see if you know what it is. Kind of a weird looking little deal. Yeah, that's an old hand drill crank, and it's spinning this little thing right here. Got any idea what it's for? Well, it's not my original idea. I just want to be clear about that. I didn't think this up, though I'm surprised I didn't. Anyway, I did see someone else doing this on the internet, and I thought, you know, I've got an old drill like that. Actually, theirs was made quite different, but I've got an old drill, and I could make a similar deal. And what does it do? Well, it spins a violin bow. Now, why do you need to spin a violin bow? Well, let me just back up here and show you what I'm doing. I made this part here too, and I've got a hole in here, and actually it's kind of a tapered hole so that it's thinner in the middle. I left a little bit of thickness here for strength, but it's actually just barely touching the bow on the inside, and I've smoothed it out with files and things the best I could. And then we can just slide it into here, like so, and we can tighten this down with this little hose clamp, just to make sure it's pretty tight. And then the one thing you want to do is turn it very slowly first to make sure you got clearance down here on this end. As you might be able to see, this end, when you spin it, wobbles quite a bit. And it seems like it's working pretty well though. In fact, I think what I'll do is I'll move this piece in that way a little bit, and that'll give me a little bit more clearance just for peace of mind, even though it seems to have enough. But anyway, that should work, and let me just double check that, make sure it's spinning freely. Okay, so now even with that, some of you will still not know why you need to spin this. The reason I need to spin this is I'm going to wrap this serving here with wire, and I refer to it as serving, folks. There's probably a technical name on a violin maker, you know, that a violin maker would use. The reason I call any wrapping around anything a serving is because I used to make bowstrings all the time. I was very into archery when I was younger, and I still shoot a little bit, but I was into very high-end competition archery. And anyway, I made my own bowstrings, and anytime you would wrap something around the bowstring, that was called serving. So that's what I call this. To me, we're wrapping a silver serving around this bow stick, and it's a very, very, very fine silver wire that we're going to wrap on here as a grip, and then we'll put a piece of leather on here also as a grip. So that's where we're headed. We'll bring you back here in just a minute as I get her set up. Perhaps this will illustrate better what we're going to try to achieve. You can see this little silver wire wrapping there, and then there's a little leather grip there also. And this is just for, you know, holding the bow. Anyway, people use different materials here. This is what I thought I would start off trying with my new machine and see how well we can do this. Some people solder this. This one appears to have been soldered, in fact. I was going to try to do it just by friction and hold it in there. I don't know if I can do that or not. I know I could do that with a bowstring. I don't know if I can do that with this or not. But I may try it first, and then if that doesn't work, then we may solder it. I just don't like the idea of soldering it on this wood, just for the pure obvious reason you're going to burn the wood a little bit. And anyway, we'll put this little leather grip on here later too, and we'll see how well all this goes. Well, I thought I had the camera running, and I got a little further ahead here than I had planned on. I did start this without soldering the end down here, and I've got the loose end pulled back underneath the windings, and I'm winding it as tight as I possibly can. And just like I used to make bowstrings, I would make the winding very, very, very tight. And that's what we're going for here. It's very tight. After I get a few more wraps around here, I think I'm going to cut that extra little piece of wire off, because I don't think it's going to pull out. What I want to do now is loosen up this tape. I'm going to loosen up the tape, and I'm going to pull on this loose end to hopefully pull it in tighter. And of course it doesn't want to go, it wants to break. So get regular pliers here that I can grip it with, hopefully. And I did break it off, unfortunately, right at the winding, so it's okay. At least it broke off at the right place. And let's go on back to the winding now and see how it goes. And I'm holding it as tight as I can possibly hold it. You know, the other fella I saw do this on the internet, he soldered it at this point right here. And I'm thinking that may be what I have to do in this case. I can think of a way to wind it, but I don't know that I could get it tight enough. I will try the winding first and see if I can do it by winding, but I gotta be honest, I don't know if I can get it tight enough. Okay, I think I've got it figured out here. Now I just have to see if I can pull it off. If I can get about 10 or 12 wraps. Okay. And then what I'll do is... Well, I did it right, but I did it backwards in a way. I should have started on the inside and went out. Oh no, I broke the little wire that was attached. Oh no. Bummer. What a bummer. Well, perhaps I should have just soldered it. Okay, I got her back under control, got her wound back up. It was a little tedious, but you know, it was my first time. You know, you don't know what to expect, and now I know. I'm going to go ahead and put the drop of solder there. That's what it appears like it needs to have. I have a rosin core solder here. I'm going to put just a tiny bit of flux on this just to see if that helps something. I just want to get this hot enough to get a little melt there going. Perfect. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. And I do think this end's tight enough, but I think I will go ahead and just touch the solder to it also, since I've got the solder here, and it'll just make sure that it doesn't come loose. I'm just lightly scratching the surface there with some wet or dry sandpaper. Put just a drop of this stuff on there again. And should be able to get it just hot enough to get just a little bit of solder right here on the very tip end. Perfect. Perfect. Couldn't hardly do it any better, I don't think. Where I soldered these ends, there's just a tiny little bit of bead of solder, and I mean it's tiny, but I'm going to just try to knock it down where it's level with the wire. We've got a very fine little file here. That way there won't be a bump there. Okay, now we'll try to get the leather going here, the little leather grip. It's a very hot day. The furnace RSW is on. I'm sorry, it's noisy. I'm just skiving the edges of this leather grip down. The store-bought one is about 3 centimeters long. This one's, 3.75 centimeters long. It's a little more than 3.5 centimeters for sure. I'm just skiving the edges to make it thinner at the edges so that when they overlap there won't be such a seam. This leather is so thin already that you can't skive it the normal way, which is to more or less cut the edges. I'm just dragging it across there. The fellow I saw do this on YouTube used regular Titebond for this. I've got this stuff which I like really good. It's called Canopy Glue Formula 560. One of my viewers put me onto this. This stuff is awesome and it's water soluble. I really like it. I'm actually just going to go ahead and soak the leather with this. I'm pretty sure this will do a very good job on keeping it on there and keeping it tight. And this stuff sets up pretty darn fast, so I think that'll be good too. I'm starting on the bottom edge of the bow so that the seam will be on the bottom edge. And I'm wrapping it around. It's feeling pretty good. Not perfect, but pretty darn good. This old leather's so old it ripped. This stuff it may just be past its useful age. What a pain. It really did rip. It's just, this leather has gotten so bad. I thought I could make it work on this. Maybe not. Got the leather grip here that I'm going to try to use. This leather's very old. It may actually tear. It's so thin, it's very brittle. I'm just going to squirt the glue all over it and see if we can get it to wrap around here. I think once it's glued on it'll be stable, but you know, in this form it's pretty darn brittle, I have to admit. It's very old leather and it's very, very, very thin. Thinner probably than the leather that they normally use for this, actually. So it should work really good, I think. Just getting the glue off my fingers so I can try to manipulate this as well as possible. I'm going to try to get it where the seam is on the bottom and try not to stretch it because it doesn't like to stretch. This stuff breaks. It already broke. Doggone. I cannot believe it. Can't use it. Doggone, it's past its prime. Just have to wash that off and find some more leather. Probably just have to use regular leather and just skive it down real thin and dye it black. Doggone it. I was sure hoping to use that because it was the perfect stuff. Alright, we'll find us something better and try that. Once again, the air's blowing here. I'm sorry about the noise, but it's just crazy hot. I am trying an experiment here. I have seen similar wrappings done before, and I thought I'd give it a shot and see how well it works. Trying to switch hands here and can't get my hands to work all at once. I think I'm going to go ahead and put some glue on this pretty much all the way around. I got a little bit of glue on it at the beginning there, but not much. I wrapped it under. And I think this will work. It'll make a nice looking grip. I think that's about it right there. Now the tricky part is, how will I end this? And I'm wondering if I can just end it with the glue and just skive this back to make it come out even. I'm going to leave it like that and see how that looks when it's done. I think it's going to be fine. It looks nice. It's got a nice feel to it. I've seen other grips made with stranded, leather like that, and it looks good and it feels good, so hopefully it's going to work. Well, I don't know how much of all that I caught on film, but you can see that my little device for spinning the wire was successful. It did a good job on that, and I've got the hair loosened up on the bow. I did put new hair. I also did this winding on here rather than just a solid piece of leather. You could do it either way. And I don't claim to be a bow restoration expert. I'm not at all. But I did restore this one pretty much from scratch. It was pretty bad. And I did put a new cover over this, and this is bone. That's actually deer antler. And I cut it really thin, and I even put a little tip on the end of it there. So it's a pretty decent restore job. I made a new plate here. This is actually abalone shell. This is a different frog than was on here. I just scrounged it up, made it work. I had to make everything about it. This frog was in bad shape too, but it was better than the one that came with it. This is a new screw. So, all in all, it's in pretty darn good shape compared to the way it got here. I'm not claiming that I'm a bow restore expert by any stretch of the imagination. I just know that, it's now functional. It does work pretty well. The hair tightens up nice. The fiddle turned out real nice. The fiddle was in just really bad shape. I reset the neck on the fiddle. I cut the bridge and everything. I set the sound post in there. I restored this tailpiece. There was a piece of pearl missing there on one of the leaves, and I put that in there. So, it's in pretty darn good shape for the shape it's in, if you will. I'm not a fiddle player, but here's what it sounds like. And now a word from our sponsor, Dr. Benjamin Dover's Miracle Salve. Dr. Ben Dover goes on to say that you apply Miracle Salve to any irritation and it will instantly disappear. He goes on to say it'll even work on your mother-in-law. Dr. Ben Dover says apply Miracle Salve to any hemorrhoid and it will instantly disappear. He says it works so well that after applying Miracle Salve to a hemorrhoid, you won't be able to find your bottom with both hands even if you have a map tattooed on your chest. So the next time you have an irritation, try Dr. Ben Dover's Miracle Salve. If it works for you, it's a miracle. Give you some idea what it sounds like. It's a little bit on the harsh side to me. I've got Perlon core strings on here to try to soften it up some. I've got the sound post back a little further, trying to soften it up a little bit. These Stainer copy fiddles, this one actually says Schweitzer on the back. You can actually see that probably right there if I get the light just right where it's not glaring on it too bad. It says Schweitzer. But it's basically a Stainer copy fiddle. On the inside it says anything but Stainer. It's got, I can't read it. It's in It's pretty much German. Can't really read much of it. But it does say, I can read Amati, Pestini, and then I believe it says 1812, but that looks like the one used to be a 7 to me. So I think it's 1872, something like that. You know, it's a copy fiddle, obviously. It's an old beater country fiddle, but it's up in pretty darn good shape. Now, this surface was restored with the semi-chrome polish. That finish was completely dead. I did put a video out on Patreon on how I restored the surface finish on this, and you can see a before and after view there. You truly wouldn't believe it, I don't think. This bow, you know, while it's a good bow, I think. It's got some weight to it. It's an octagon shaft. I would say it's Pernambuco wood, as best I can tell. But the bow, you know, properly restored by a quote-unquote bow technician would probably be worth more than, you know, after I restored it. But I would say this bow ought to be worth a couple $100 at least. It's a pretty good bow. And of course, anything I've done here is not permanent. It could all be undone. I didn't do anything that would mess with the actual stick itself. And pretty much the only thing that was usable when it got here was the stick. So, that's the story. I'm making no big claims. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for taking a look.